Okay, I got to keep my finger on the screen because my recording equipment is not exactly the cheapest, but it's an iPhone. So anyway, I'm going to call this video Satanist versus Society, my judgments of them and their judgments of me. So for starters, I'm going to preface this by saying the kind of Satanist that I am not a LaVeyan. I think LaVeyan is, he flirted with the ideas of far-right stuff, and he's very, very, I say he's I'm recording this very roughly, you just pardon me, all right? He's a mock egalitarian and isn't really an actual egalitarian. He's into some eugenicist crap, and also he's more of a showman than literally all else. I suppose that one could easily admit that he was reacting to the 60s and how poor of a society that it was, and how it was beginning to become much better than, well, the before days, which were pretty much unsurvivable by the standards of people of today. Like, if we used 60s rules in 2024, I think there would be massive amounts of violence, because this town is simply not fit for either one of us. I'm not saying that I do approve of violence. I'm saying that it would happen, because we are not compatible with what happens back then. LaVey, he was also, he believed in a concept of social Darwinism that's, admittedly, it's not very fun. He pretty much thinks that anybody who has spirituality in the slightest is essentially, well, you could toss out a big R slur and you would agree with it. And so I'm not a LaVeyan. I'm not an obnoxious, trilby-wearing Redditor. I had Reddit. I don't like Reddit. I despise Reddit. I got my Reddit sacked, despite my 80,000 karma, despite the thousands of karma per post, not consecutively, but several, because I had aired out an opinion concerning Israel and their very bad approach to defending their own people by becoming no better than who they persecute. And so essentially that means 105% I am not a LaVeyan. I do my own thing. I mean, even LaVey would take me seriously. Even if he didn't like me, he'd be like, oh, I mean, you just take what I do and just run with it, and like turn it on its own head, put its underwear on its face. He wouldn't get that angry. And so I do as I please. I was a devout Roman Catholic at a certain point when life was better. I ended up leaving the church for, well, a myriad of reasons concerning basically society's viewpoints towards Roman Catholicism. They have a high rate of sexual abuse. Although that was not the reason why exactly, but it was, one nail in that coffin. The others were personal reasons in regards to me recognizing that I am pretty much not straight, and how the book of Leviticus essentially has denounced it, and that no denomination of Christianity, no matter what they tell you, has deleted that passage from the Bible. You know what it is. I like to call it the abomination passage, where it essentially equates two men sleeping alongside each other as a man, as it equates two men sleeping alongside each other with a man sleeping with an ox. And well, that is pretty obscene what I have said. very obscene, and it is very obscene what they have said. And I am not supportive of that whatsoever. I suppose that it's my trauma that I've been in length about, because I have been called slurs. I guess I showed an attraction towards males without realizing, and now I fully embrace it and I'm cognizant of it because I'm not a child that made people put a big target on my back. They also like to defend child abusers of all stripes, and oh boy, look at me. Look at me talking about my trauma again. Everything is interconnected, isn't it? Spare the rod, spoil the child. I hate that saying. People take it very literally. One person does, other ones don't. And there is a passage that is translated from Hebrew in the Old Testament. I understand not everyone believes in the Old Testament, but if there was really this much division, I think they would have just altered the Bible. However, the Bible is infallible. Look at them falling on their heads again. Their heads and their asses. Not making any sense. I am telling you that I consider each one suspect of perhaps doing bad things. I'm sure there are amazing people, but I'm also sure that those amazing people that you have met in real life are rather uninformed and not very soft, to behave in society. They betray others on a moment's notice and have a really shitty idea of how to live, which involves no cursing, even as a man. If you stub your toe, you can't say the word, fuck, It's extremely stringent. You're not allowed to lie, even just to protect your own skin. And that is concerning. They like to, they had rules on keeping slaves. And no one's omitted the passages. There's no council regulating on what is and what isn't in the Bible. They just do translations. I'll give a rule about slavery that they had. For slaves in the Old Testament era, if you run away from the plantation, you're considered free. And people say, oh, wow, that is so loving. Why are there rules on owning slaves? There should be a flat out, no, nobody is a slave to another. You can make someone work for you for a salary in exchange. But even then, it's not truly making. They can abandon it at their own will. Whatever it is that you tell them to do. Is shining their shoes. Programming computers. Being the president. You need to understand. Once I opened the Bible and read it for real, there are a lot of things that my present reasoning, and even my reasoning back then, could not wrap my head around. And then what we were told in Sunday school to try not to focus so much on the Bible. Why not? But then you tell us that it's the Word of God. Don't focus so much on it. Don't focus so much on the Word of God. And a million other reasons. And then they become a safety threat. And then these people, because of these passages in the Bible, become threats to society, and they cause a whole slew of social issues. And so I abandoned. I was forced to be confirmed, though. Back when I was in freshman year of high school, it was, my mother said that she had spent $200 a year on tuition and that she needed to, she needed to see her money be worth it, even if it was only a little more than $1,000 at the end of the day. It was like 8 years, so, oh boy. Let's calculate. 8 times 2, 16. $1,600 spent over the course of 8 years. I couldn't even be allowed to watch, what is that thing again? Billy and Mandy on Sundays. I was a good kid, a moral one, especially when I was 6. And what? What? You don't give me my day of rest. 6-year-olds need their rest. They want to encroach on every little person. And then what? I would complain to people in real life about it. And they're like, oh, it's normal. Like, spirituality is so important. It's so important. I don't even think it's that important. You know who I am? The kind of Satanist I am? I am agnostic. I don't know. I'm going to admit that I don't know. Have I had spiritual experiences? Have I not? Do I just cling on to the ideals? I literally don't know. And that's okay. That's just fine. But then again, it really shouldn't have to be this open-ended. And this is not mandatory because let me tell you something. The spirits, if they do exist, in my eyes, do not care about any of us. There's too much happening at one time. My prayers don't mean diddly squat. And I know with the story of the Bible, if I prayed to Satan, he's just not going to come. And sometimes I would, but it would just be, I don't know, so I could cling on to something. And I knew that I was just coping, and I was 100% aware, but I would still pray because I just needed to feel comfy. I knew that nothing perhaps would come of it, but I left, because I'm agnostic, I leave, Daddy Devil the little note that, hey, I'm waiting. So I guess one would say that I'm a half-assed agnostic Satanist who clings onto the ideals that the Bible opposes. And also you need to think about Yahweh. I like to call him Yahweh, not God. Some would say, it's really offensive to Jews, but I like to call him Yahweh, and I'm not trying to mock any Jewish people. I mean, they're like, no, don't say that. Don't say, I am not part of the community. So please do not hate me for saying the name Yahweh. Or YHWH, because it's apparently too holy. The Bible, it was, why would he create the devil if he's so bad? Why would he do a million bad things? Why create things like cancer and give it to small little girls? Why create things like the need to survive? Why create little things like that? We need to have, if God truly loved us, we should have been born in heaven, and earth should simply not be real or even an idea in his head. The word bad alone does not deserve to exist, because that means that we're fundamentally screwed. And with the way God designed things, if the afterlife is not real, remember one day we are scheduled to perish, despite all our efforts, during a really, really slow, decades-long wind down where you lose your cognition, you lose your physique, you lose your money, and you lose your house, and you lose your family, and you're alone in the world. You're in a nursing home. People are taking advantage of you. You got bed sores, and then you clock out. It's a terrible way to live. Even the most normal ways, I think they are terrible. Some would say, oh, you're whiny. I can put up with those ways. I can put up with normalcy. But I understand how cosmically screwed we all are. I understand that there isn't terribly much that we can do about it, besides maybe create knickknacks like houses and refrigerators and stoves to make life better, so I can light a fire with ease instead of, what was it, a flint and steel, and so I don't live in a camp. So I can connect to people despite my isolation, despite my isolated situation, which is pretty much enforced via phone, which I'm using right now, and every other thing that you need. it's really stupid, our entire situation. And people tell you, you need to appreciate life for what it is. Life is good. Life is this. Life is that. Life is good. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Has it ever been great? No, I am not a small person. And people would like to say that you were whiny. And, oftentimes they would just have it out for you. And I remember I tried committing suicide and I converted Satanist afterward because I pretty much said that I would fight the world as much as I could. And I would stand against the morality that put me in the ward. I would. And I did, and I do that every single day that I live. And that is why I live. Not just for my pleasure, but for that. To stand for what's right. And yet, even psychiatric staff will try and push me back towards Jesus and give me a very, very concerned look just because I mentioned Satan and my half-assed beliefs and the ideals I think it espouses, if it's real. But I know it would, because he's just a patsy. He is just a patsy, and that's all he'll ever be for everything that's bad. So you don't go after the literal most powerful, confessed to be most powerful. Contradictions galore. At least my religion is, if I even want to call it that, is respected by current shrinks, because it's gotten ridiculous. And I feel like they have devolved into the thought police because of Christianity. They want you to be passive. So I wasn't allowed to defend myself. And it's such a long, complicated explanation, which I'm going to spare you because I think it's all interconnected. And why not? I mean, here's a simple factoid. Most people in the US are Christian. 50 to 60%? Or maybe it's just religious people, meaning, the 10% are literally everyone else, and 50 to 45%, 45 to 50% are Jesus lovers, and that's literally it. I did everything that I could. Everything to follow. I prayed the rosary. I took the body of Christ. I was eager, even when I was just told. Meaning, I guess you could call that voluntold, as they say in the military, but whatever. I did everything I could. I was a good kid. I honored my father and mother. I didn't lie. I did not steal. I did not hurt. But then I'm forced into a self-defense situation, and suddenly my community denies me. And now, let's have a political spin on this, yeah? You ready? Project 2025. The disillusion of church in... The disillusion of the separation of church and state. It's freaking terrible. If you have stuff to do on Sunday, I read this. They're going to close everything down, I suppose, or a lot of things on Sunday, simply because Jesus. And I just do not believe that it's okay. What if I have something vital to do on Sunday? Not a lot of places are open on Sunday. But it's not a lot. Not every single one. I have things to do. And I have more time on my hands because I don't go to church. Not everyone is going to bend over backwards, especially in my local area, the state of New Jersey. We are a purple state, right? Or at least we were until, Kamala won here, but not a lot of other places, unfortunately. I showed you guys a video of a Christian woman who is my family member. She would call me slurs, and she would be extremely, extremely bothered that I like guys as much as I like women. I'm pretty convinced that because she had a talk with my last fling, who I had known since childhood, that she could be the reason that I am single. because of her meddling, because of him believing. I thought that I could make the guy come around after my trauma, but and we ended up screwing, and we got in a situationship, and then, oh wow, he doesn't speak to me and gives me minimal words. Like I tell him, oh, I have a fever. He doesn't even give me his cell. And then it's because the Christian woman basically popped up and said, oh, look, he's such a terrible person. He is also una. Wow, I was just about to get kicked off of YouTube for saying the F slur. But yeah, she would say that a lot. And the M slur, which is pretty much the F slur, but in Spanish. And you know the scene from Scarface, that guy, Tony Montana, he would love to say it. At the end of the movie, he pulls up with an M16 because, well, he's really the one that got pulled up on. He's firing fully automatic and he's cursing out in Spanish and saying a bunch of slurs, which were ultra macho in the cheesy 80s, but nowadays simply would not fly and make you pretty much want to execute him right then and there if it were real life. I mean, he was a drug lord. But anyway, they just seem to meddle in a lot of things. And even when you're talking about, well, to bring it back to the suicide, they still have the gall to disrespect you. At one of your most vulnerable moments when you trust them and they're supposed to tinker your head to make you simply be alive, they are swapping out your propaganda for theirs. And once more, it was a suicide thing. And also, second, I was 20. I should have respected my autonomy. I did everything that I needed to. And the Christians essentially had it taken away from me. And my church didn't do diddly squat about it. And the Christians are pretty much a lot of cops and stuff. So when I called the cops back when I was 13, they pretty much went like, they wanted to consider commitment right then and there, although they never took me to the hospital. They just laughed and said, all you have to do is do your algebra homework, even though I did. And I would say I was in school for 12 hours. I am not from South Korea. But it's a little metaphor. I spent the normal day. Dismissal time was 2:48. I stay after until 6. I stay after until 6 because I sucked at algebra. And I still suck at it. Yes, I understand the X is supposed to be, a number. It's a placeholder. It's a variable. That's just called formal thinking. And, people thought I just wasn't trying hard enough. And, well, yeah, I already told you. They started quoting Jesus and then went like, oh, geez, he's very, very disrespectful now. What happened to him? It's like he changed overnight. Overnight. All the beatings that I got, all the Jesus shilling, the church not cooperating, the police saying just respect your parents. And, I don't believe all cops are bad because I wanted to be a boot. I did want to be a boot. I wanted to be a soldier, to be exact. I wasn't sure if National Guard or what, but obviously with my tango with mental health, my dreams are pretty much dead. But now, you know what? Considering the demographics of everyone, I'm not going to be another, I would say, borderline white hick who's Puerto Rican and doesn't know much besides do what you're told. Perhaps, maybe in the event of a dictatorship, I would have been your enemy. And maybe this is how I atone. But I would say that this is too much atonement, and I have learned my lesson a million times over. I am very sorry that I hated people, and I did say slurs back when I was a kid. I did wholeheartedly, because I just could not accept myself, and that was how my family was. And that was how my community was. We are Hispanic, machismo, and yada yada. If you're Latino, you know that the opinion is just overwhelming. And then we come over here, we see how the white guys are, we turn into a bunch of, snowflakes. Some would say, I'm not a snowflake. I did everything I could. I believe, as a Satanist, that When someone violates you in your lair, you should cast them out. I did that to my brother last night. There was another video about it. There's only so few videos on this channel. You'll find it so easily. I remember my brother, we were having a discussion about religion on the train, and he says, if you're not careful, if you keep disrespecting God, God will kill you. God will kill me. Wow, the boogeyman will kill me. God, Yahweh, the piece of shit, nowhere to be seen, yet claims epic responsibility. He's like one of those billionaire, never worked a day in his fucking life types. I would say my brother violated me in my lair. We call it the lair. It's pretty much our homes. He tried instigating conflict, and he tried espousing tradition that I no longer needed, that hurt me despite my PTSD diagnosis. And so I had to cast him out. And I did it firmly. I suppose I casted him out from my life instead of the property. I think it's really terrible how everything is. And how it just connects back to the Christians. I'm not going to assign 100% blame to them. I will never. Because you know what? Some liberal types, I will admit, they think Christians cannot be good people. Although in my eyes, I mean, for safety reasons, in my experience, I think a lot of them are just suspect. I think that those virulent SJWs have lived similar stories to me, except they got really, really carried away. I try to hold people who bear the cross at a healthy distance. A healthy one. Anyone that's flagrant, no, I cannot allow them into my space. And I don't think I can allow a Christian into my personal life because, look, I got to be honest. I was going to get a boyfriend, right? He's from Pennsylvania. And he said that he was battling lust, and he's like, no, we can't do anything together like that. I'm like, what do you mean? It's just like, I mean, I respect his limits, but it's his, I wasn't going to do it the first day. That's crazy. And feels like I'm taking advantage of him. But you know, the thing is, he's using Jesus as an excuse. And what was he? He was Roman Catholic. He says he has issues with his parents. He's been in the system. It goes back to them, I suppose, half or a little bit more than half the time. He's in this pipeline. I guess he's going to fall back and then maybe, become a bad person, but who his family wanted. And it really sucks that these days everything is structured where if they even think that you're out of step, then you get casted out for no real reason. And those people tend to be Christians. They tend to be the normal ones, and they like to mischaracterize. And then when you turn 18, you're throwing your meds down the freaking toilet, and then you're racing around provider to provider to provider. And, somebody with the actual freaking sense, instead of just saying, you need to accept other people's cultures. I do. But the thing is, Christians oftentimes, they don't. And I cannot allow them to catch me at such a vulnerable state because my beliefs are inherently inflammatory. And I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but it's just, I was not shown good. And they seem to breed like rabbits around here. And I've been hurt physically, mentally. The stakes have turned high. I'm being coerced out of work because of legal shit. By the same people who didn't love me as a kid. there's only so much that I am able to tolerate. And it pains me to say this, but I should pretty much try to isolate myself from them as much as I can unless I'm in public. I think I should only engage with them for business reasons, means of survival. I would let them cut my ham. I would let them sign my check, boss me around at work. I'd have a nice chit chat, but I try to keep it superficial. They don't deserve to know me. Not like that. I'm sorry things have turned out this way. But I know my people the best. And I know that they cannot be entirely trusted. And yeah, that's pretty much why I am the way I am as a Satanist. And I don't think I'm ever going to go back to a church ever again. If I looked smug, well, at least I'm not a misanthrope. Give me that as credit.